So today we will discuss about general principles which are involved in the management of poisoning. What is poison? Poison is any substance which when entered into our body or comes in contact with our body which causes a illness or death is nothing but a poison. So when a person is poisoned, first what we have to do? What are the general principles that should be followed when a person is being poisoned? First we have to stabilize a particular patient who is being poisoned, and we have to evaluate the particular condition of a patient. We have to do the decontamination of a gut. We have to eliminate the poison from the body, and we have to use the antidote. Antidote is nothing but which acts against that particular poison. We have to administer antidote, and we have to give proper nursing care, and we have to support him mentally. Psychiatric care should be given. First step when a person is poisoned is stabilization and evaluation. So we have to check first the person is life threatening condition or he is normal. So we have to pay attention to the ABCD. Here ABCD indicates A for airway, B for breathing, C for circulation, and D for depression of CNS. Whether a person is breathing properly, whether the normal air inflow and outflow is proper or not, whether the circulation is normal, whether a person is depressed. All this should be checked first. Then we have to go for the systemic examination. So in the previous slide we have seen we will check the ABCD first. Then if this airway is not proper, if a person is unable to breathe properly, what we will do? We will give assisted ventilation. So in which condition we will give this assisted ventilation is when the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide is greater than 45 mmHg per 6 kilopascals and the partial pressure of oxygen is less than 70 mmHg per 9.3 kilopascals. Then we will give assisted ventilation. And we can also measure this ventilation respiratory status by using the Wright's spirometer. And to check whether a person is in the coma, what is the severity of coma condition, there are different scales that are being used to measure. Glasgow Coma Scale, Coma Recovery Scale, Reed's Classification, and Comprehensive Level of Consciousness Scale. All these are the various scales used for measuring the coma condition. So according to Hoffman and Goldfrack, they say that if a comatized patient is there and we don't know what poison is been there, what poison is being ingested by that particular person. So what we will do is we will use coma cocktail. What is this coma cocktail? Generally cocktail is a condition where we will mix one or two more than two mixtures. So here coma cocktail consists of three antidotes: dextrose, thiamine and naloxone, and metabolic acidosis. So this metabolic acidosis will be of two types: anionic gap and non-anionic gap. What is this anionic gap is? It is can be calculated by sodium plus potassium minus HCO3 plus Cl. So it should be between 12 to 16 millimole per liter. If it is more than 20 millimole per liter, it indicates the metabolic acidosis. So as we have seen the metabolic acidosis, we have seen how to calculate the anionic gap. So this anionic gap may cause gap acidosis, which increases the anionic gap. Non-gas acidosis is the condition where there is no change in the anionic gap. So here is a list of toxins which are associated with various conditions like respiratory center failure, muscles of respiratory muscles have been failure, tachycardia, normotension is a condition where you have normal arterial blood pressure, tachycardia, hypotension. So these are various toxins which are associated with this particular condition. So the first step, stabilization and evaluation. We will check what is the condition of a patient and we will try to stabilize that particular poisoned patient. The second step is gut decontamination. So gut decontamination is a method nothing but gut decontamination. Decontamination is nothing but removal of something from the gut. So it is gut decontamination. Method of removal of poison from the GIT. So it includes emesis, nothing but causing the vomitings, gastric lavage, cleaning the gastric tract, catharsis, activated charcoal, and whole bowel irrigation. So we will deal about each and individually about the methods what are used for gut decontamination. So the first step is emesis, nothing but inducing the vomitings. So already we have studied about the emesis and antiemetics in your previous classes. So emesis can be done by using a syrup which can be administered. Examples: epicock. Epicock is nothing but it is a root of a shrub called as Cephalis epicona. It constitutes cephalin, emitin, psychotrin. So this helps for the patient when when they are poisoned. We can give this epicoc so that it can induce the vomitings. So how the epicona drug is going to act? So it will activate the peripheral sensory receptors in the GIT. It will stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone which is present in the medulla oblongata, and it also activates the vomiting center. So what dose it should be taken and how it should be taken will be explained in the slide. So when we are using this emetic drug, especially epicona, it may develop some complications like arrhythmia, myocarditis, aspiration pneumonia, and Mallory-Weiss tears. Mallory-Weiss tears is nothing but it is a condition where the tear will be developed between the esophagus or in the GI tract, that is Mallory-Weiss tears. Because of this tearing of the GI tract or the mucous layer of the GIT, it may cause bleeding, that is Mallory-Weiss tears. And this epicoc use it should be contraindicated in pregnancy, in children with minimum age, that is kids 1 to 3 years should be prevented. Old patients, that is geriatric patients, we should not use. Coma, convulsions, corrosive poisoning conditions, petroleum products, and emetic poisoning consumption. During all these conditions, we should not use the epicona. Gastric lavage is nothing but cleaning of the gastric region. Stomach wash is nothing but gastric lavage. So it is defined as decontamination technique which helps to clean the stomach. We may do it by sequential administration or aspiration of small volumes of fluid through the orthogastric tube, nothing but through the oral route into the gastric region. We will insert some tube and we will clear the stomach. So for which people you can use this particular gastric lavage? Who have taken life threatening. If you are not doing this stomach wash, the person may be die. So life threatening dose for those patients we can use, and which can cause the morbidity, death of that particular person within 1 to 2 hours of taking that particular poison. Ingestion is nothing but taking into. So beyond 1 to 2 hours of ingestion, gastric lavage is permitted only in few conditions like sustained release preparations and delayed gas emptying. So for this stomach wash, what is the procedure that is followed? First we have to explain what we are going to do, what procedure we are going to follow should be explained to the patient. If the patient says it is not required, I don't give any consent. Without their permission, we are not supposed to do the stomach wash. Gastric lavage should not be done without the permission of the patient. So once they agree, then we have to do the procedure. For comatized patients, we can include or perform the endotracheal intubation before the lavage starts. So patient should be laid head down, the head should be down, and they should be moved to his left lateral side. And once we are going to insert the tube, we have to mark how much length we are going to insert. We can't insert whatever length we want, right? So first we have to decide how much length we are going to insert. After marking that particular length, we will start the procedure and we will insert the tube. Then that tube is called as lavocator. Usually in children they use Evol's tube or Ryle's tube. And usually the tube should be inserted by the oral route. If you are inserting through the nasal route, it causes epistaxis, nothing but nose bleeding will be happen. So usually it is preferred to insert the tube by the oral route. So once the tube is inserted by the oral route, we have to see that the particular patient should not bite that particular tube. So we will use the mouse gas so that they will not bite the tube. Then it should enter into the stomach and small quantities of a liquid or warm saline will be given to the patient so that the water intoxication is prevented. Continue the lavage and then give the activated charcoal so that it will absorb the poison. You can use the ionic character also, and the tube should be removed once this stomach is being cleaned. Gastric lavage is done. So what are the complications with this gastric lavage? It may cause aspiration pneumonia, spasm of the larynx, vagal inhibition, cardiac arrhythmias may be developed, esophageal or stomach perforation can be happened. So what precaution should be taken? Avoid usage in people who consume non-toxic agents or non-toxic doses. Avoid usage as a deterrent to subsequent ingestions. Deterrent is nothing but whatever it is ingestion, poison. If if you are giving some liquid, it may increase the activity of that particular poison. So that like that, we should not give any solution. And it is contraindicated in the recent surgery patients, advanced pregnancy condition, coma, alkali ingestion, acid congestion, convulsions, or petroleum product ingestion. During these conditions, we should not do gastric lavage. So after emesis and gastric lavage, next method is catharsis. Catharsis is a condition where we use purgatives. So what is the action of the purgatives? They will remove the fluid from the body. How they will do? When you are using ionic salts or saline, they will alter the physiochemical properties and they will cause activation of the motility. The motility or movement will be increased, by then the expulsion process will be activated. So here magnesium citrate, magnesium sulfate, sodium sulfate can be used as purgatives. Next one is activated charcoal. Activated charcoal has a property of absorption. So what it does is charcoal absorbs the particular poison and thereby it prevents the absorption of that particular poison in the GIT. That is the reason we are using activated charcoal. So what is the procedure to use the activated charcoal? So whatever activated charcoal you are taking, to that we are going to add 4 to 8 times the quantity of water. We will prepare it as a slurry and we will administer to the patient after the lavage or emesis. So whatever activated charcoal we are using, it will absorb the poison and prevents the absorption in the GIT. What are the demerits of this this activated charcoal? It may be unpleasant in taste. It may increase or the chances of vomitings. It may cause diarrhea, pulmonary aspiration and intestinal obstruction. In which cases it is contraindicated. In proven ileus. Proven ileus is nothing but a painful obstruction of the ileum. Small bowel obstruction, caustic ingestion, petroleum product ingestion. During these conditions, activated charcoal is contraindicated. So the charcoal absorption properties it may be well absorbed, moderately absorbed or poorly absorbed in various conditions. Next step in the poisoning condition is whole bowel irrigation or whole gut lavage. So we are going to clear whole bowel. So what we will do is we will take excess quantity, more quantity of a suitable solution through the nasogastric tube, whereas gastric lavage we are doing through the oral route, preferred by oral route. Whereas here we are using by the nasogastric tube for 2 to 6 hours, which causes diarrhea. So usually the solutions used are polyethylene glycols with electrolytes, and the lavage solution can be used. So this polyethylene glycol, what it is doing along with the electrolytes is it induces the diarrhea. So in the previous slide and this slide they have given in which conditions we can use this complete bowel lavage. So when a person has been having body packer syndrome, nothing but cocaine filled packets will be ingested or taken by the patients. So during that condition, when they have taken iron tablets, pain chips, when they have been taken wantedly or unwantedly. So what procedure we will do is, we will first insert a tube by the nasogastric tube will be instilled. Then we will instill the solution through the tube. Then we will make a person to sit on the commode so that the motility is increased and diarrhea will be caused and the whole bowel will be cleaned. So the complications of this are vomitings, abdominal distension, cramping, anal irritation. It is contraindicated in GI obstruction, ileus, hemorrhage and perforation. Poison elimination. So how we are going to eliminate the poison? One is forced diuresis. Diuresis is nothing but increased urine output. Forced diuresis is nothing but we are using something so that diuresis process is being increased. So this forced diuresis can be used when a person is being poisoned. So usually alkali diuresis is opted by salicylates or barbiturates. Extracorporeal technique. Extracorporeal is nothing but when a medical procedure is done or performed outside the body, we call them as extracorporeal techniques. So the first method in this is hemodialysis. Dialysis is a condition where we will remove the unwanted toxic substances and we will add the required nutrients or essentials to our body. The process of purifying the person's blood, that is nothing but hemodialysis. And the next method is hemoperfusion. Hemoperfusion, nothing but whatever the amount of blood is present in the patient, they are allowed to pass through an absorbent. So what this absorbent will do, whatever the toxins are there, they will be absorbed by this absorbent. So removing the toxic substances through the using of adsorbent from the blood, that is hemoperfusion. This is more effective than hemodialysis, and there are these indications are given for the hemoperfusion. The other methods include peritoneal dialysis, hemofiltration, and plasmapheresis. Peritoneal dialysis is nothing but the dialysis is done by the peritoneum, the largest covering layer of our body. Whereas hemofiltration, the blood of the patient is being filtrated, the waste substances are being removed, and replacement fluids whatever required for the body are added and returned to the patient. Plasmapheresis is nothing but the process of removal and treatment of the blood plasma contents into the blood circulation. As I told in the previous slides, antidote is the one which acts against the poison, which lowers the action of the poison. So each poison have a unique antidote which acts against it. So how these antidotes are acting? There are 6 different mechanisms by which the antidotes are acting. The first one is inert complex formation. It forms a complex with the poison and thereby decreases the activity by eliminating the poison from the body. And the second one is accelerated detoxification. Detoxification is nothing but the toxicity is being decreased. So examples are given for these methods. The other mechanisms decreases the toxic conversion, nothing but ethanol is there. It gets converted to methanol to show the toxic effects. So this conversion process is being prevented. Receptor site competition. This poison requires to be activated after binding to a receptor. So instead of this poison, our antidote will compete with the receptor. And the last one is receptor site blockade. The receptor is being blocked by our antidote so that it doesn't have any receptor to show the action. The sixth mechanism, toxic effect bypass. Nothing but the toxic effects are being bypassed, removed. They are being altered. For example, 100% oxygen is used in cyanide poisoning. So usually cyanide may provide difficulty in the breathing. If you are providing oxygen, so it can be combated. So here we have mentioned antidotes for the different types of overdosing or poisoning conditions. So for next one is nursing care. So what nursing care is important during the poisoning condition? Most of this care should be taken for the comatized patient who is in coma. So when a patient is in coma, they will be lying in bed for a long time. So there are chances of developing the decubitus ulcers. Decubitus ulcers is nothing but formation bed sore development. Nothing but because of a pressure of lying on the bed for a long time, that particular area what is being exposed to that pressure may develop the sores, bed sores. Frequently, for every hour we have to check the patient. We have to keep pillows between the legs. We have to use proper mattresses. If the eyes are being not blinking, we can use methyl cellulose. The bed lining should be checked regularly. We have to use proper mattresses. If a person is lying on a bed for a longer period of time, we have to move the legs and hands so that we can prevent the stiffness of that particular person. Proper catheters should be used for the patients for the urine elimination. And the last principle is psychiatric care. Usually, if a person is deliberately, knowingly taken a poison, there may be some psychological problem that a patient is been suffering. That is the reason they have taken poison. So we have to assess the patient, what is that particular condition, and we have to support that particular patient to overcome that psychological problem. After being discharging from the hospital also, we have to have regular contact with the person. Follow-up should be done, and we have to prevent the psychological problem of that particular person who is being depressed, who is having anxious mood, whatever the psychological problem is there, we have to try to support them and we have to try to overcome that particular condition of the patient.